This is my first time doing live. I'm not sure exactly how it works. I don't know how the audio is. I don't know if anyone's gonna join. I didn't really announce this, so I've got my collection back here, my record collection. It is roughly 2,000 pieces, 2,500 pieces if you count CDs, cassettes, 7 inches, which are upstairs. I'm just about to move all of this. So I've been thinking about doing this for a while. I'm gonna be packing it up. If you can take a look over here, I've got all my boxes. I'm moving about 10, 15 miles southeast of where I am right now in Plano. And yeah, let's get this thing started. I'm gonna share some bits and pieces as I go and see what I come up with. I've not really done anything like this before, so it should be interesting to say the least. Let's start with the first box, and I'm gonna start with the top corner. I've got it in alphabetical order. If you watched my recent video where I shared my organization tips, I shared some of my organization style, which includes, kind of pull this over here a little bit, you can kind of see on some of these, like I've got ones that have artist, but I also have like those that have all that kind of stuff. So first one up is Rocky Erickson. We've got the 13th floor elevators, and I pulled them out relatively recently. I kind of hit my threshold, which is about 5 records by them. I also lumped together artists, so this has both Rocky Erickson as well as a 13th floor elevator, so if there's some overlap there, I'll actually combine it into like one section. So this is my Rocky Erickson. This is actually the first record I ever picked up when I moved to Dallas. I was out here visiting my wife, who had come here looking for a new position. This is Rocky Erickson, True Love, Cast Out All Evil, and it has Ockerville River on it. This is a really good record. Rocky Erickson's Reverend of Karmic Youth, this kind of a live record there. You don't see that one very often. I've talked about this one before, 13th Floor Elevators and Bowl of the Woods. You got the reissue Easter Everywhere, and this is a more recent pickup. I just got it the other weekend. It is The Evil One by Rocky Erickson, kind of a double LP there. This is a Light in the Attic reissue. So there's my Rocky Erickson and 13th Floor Elevator. Of course, one that's missing because it's already over at the other place is the psychedelic sounds of the 13th Floor Elevators. Next up is the Numbereds. Just 764 Hero and 68, which is kind of cool. I like that record. It's got some really interesting stuff on it. 764 Hero, I love that band. The name is just so quirky. It's a Seattle band that took their name from the HOV violation phone number. So if you're a single person in a car, not like single as in not attached to somebody, but one person in a car and you're driving in the HOV lane, you dial 764 Hero and report that person. Kind of an interesting one there. If you watch my upcoming video about the 10 albums that changed my life, with the Spinal Tap thing going in there, kind of turning it up to 11. Acid House Kings, I kind of dropped their name in there. They're not one of the bands, but Acid House Kings, Club 8, The Legends, all projects of Johan Angergaard, who is kind of the head of Labrador Records out of Sweden. Some really great stuff. Club 8, kind of more on the electronic indie pop. Acid House Kings, early stuff was more Twee, Sarah Records, and The Legends. Kind of his catch-all project, his solo project that kind of spans the gamut there. One of my all-time favorite records is Up Against the Legends by The Legends. This is just so good. It's very highly fuzzed out, almost garagey, but very poppy at the same time. Acid House Kings got some great stuff. Club 8, I have most of their records dating back to, I believe it was 2000 self-titled debut, maybe not, I don't know. All right, I've got one viewer. So if you're just tuning in, I am packing up my records and sharing some stuff as I go along. Legends, talked about them already. Next up is Arcade Fire. I've got all of their records, all of their 12-inch records. Nothing too fancy there, not too much to say. Let's see, going into the A's. This one is, I'm almost done with one cube. I love it. My wife loves Ace of Base, so I picked up a handful of records for her 7-inch single or a 12-inch single. Don't turn around. The Acid. If you haven't checked out The Acid, this band is phenomenal. Kind of like this electronic-ish sound, but dark. Crossing the Red Sea with the Adverts. An original, really crappy pressing of Afghan Wigs. The first song on each side is unplayable due to a very specific warp. Got a few from the Afghan Wigs, kind of like, throwback to the 90s there, but these are all from the 2000s. What Jail is Like, that's a good one. But I think my favorite would be My World is Empty Without You from the Afghan Wigs. That's obviously a cover. I can't remember who did the original. If you know, just let me know down in the comments. And good stuff there. Let's see, Air, Playground Love. I haven't listened to that one in a while. I need to dig that one back out. All Them Witches. It's kind of like a metal-ish, Ah La Las. These guys are very interesting as well. Kind of like a garagey psychedelic. They've got some good instrumentals as well, which I really have enjoyed. Almost like a little westerny theme, but a lot of fun there. Alton Goon, I talked about these guys last year in a review. This is kind of like a Turkish psychedelic rock from the Netherlands, of all places. Always, don't pronounce it Always, as I did for the longest time. You kind of look dumb. Kind of like people who say vinyls. Don't say vinyls. It's vinyl. The plural of vinyl is vinyl. Amen Dunes. So if you're just joining me, I am packing up my entire record collection to move and just sharing some bits and pieces as I go. Didn't really announce this, so yeah, it should be kind of interesting. I'm working on the A's right now. Another one that my wife really likes, it's Annie. So this is kind of electronic, very poppy. If you kind of think of like Kylie Minogue, Moloko, stuff like that. Euro dance type music. One that I almost included in my upcoming albums that changed my life would be The Anniversary and their album Designing a Nervous Breakdown. This is such a great album from 2000 from Vagrant Records. I had wanted this forever, and it was just a little bit out of reach in terms of my price range. And they finally started reissuing it about 5-6 years ago when I picked up a copy. I think this is on Blue Wax. So really good stuff there. I do have an original pressing of their second album, which is Your Majesty, another great one. I remember getting into them back in the year 2000, 2001, when Napster was a thing, and I really got hooked on them. Back when you would do, for me, I would go and I would get into these I discover a band and then I would just seek out anything and everything from that label. And Vagrant had it was Vagrant and a few other labels in that kind of realm. It got me into the Get Up Kids, Cursive, Sons and Daughters. I think that was Domino. And The Kills, that was definitely Domino. back in those days. Got the Antlers. Apples in Stereo, got a few albums from them. They, of course, Rob Schneider from the Elephant Six Collective, you know, Neutral Milk Hotel, that kind of stuff. A lot of fun there. If you're just joining in, just a quick heads up, I am sharing my packing of my entire collection and talking a little bit about some of the records. Thus, it's going to be taking a little bit longer than normal. Starting on the second cube, for those of you that like that kind of like a 90s-ish, I think early 2000s, I got a few from the Appleseed cast. Good stuff there. I think I discovered these guys right around the same time I got into Sunny Day Real Estate. So good stuff. I only have these two though. I'd really love to find some of their earlier stuff. Mare Vitalis in particular. Almost done with one box. Here's another really fascinating one. So it's not all indie stuff. I have some throwbacks to like the 60s, 70s. Apple Tree Theater. This is one that I believe John Lennon really got into this band. And I don't know what he was creating around this time. I can't remember exactly what year it is. I have to do some digging. But it's a fascinating album, and I haven't listened to it in a few years. You're the Biggest Thing in My Life, starting out the B-side. That's, I think, my favorite track on this album, Apple Tree Theater. Check that one out. I think it's kind of like pseudo-psychedelic pop, something like that. So I've got these 14 by 14 inch boxes. I got 10 of them, and I've got 25 cubes. I'm gonna take like 3 trips to get this stuff all over to my new place. But I have a few other boxes and crates and stuff like that as well. Oh, this next one's fun. I've got a little story about the name if you are not familiar with them, but let me get my second box. Box number 2. Okay, this band is called Arab Strap, which is technically a toy for men, if you know what I mean. And the band Belle and Sebastian, who's coming up here soon, they named their album "The Boy with the Arab Strap," not knowing that it was a toy for a guy's member. Kind of shocking when they found out. Let's see here. Archers of Loaf, Arctic Monkeys. Got some rare like psychedelic sounds of the featuring Davey Allen and the Arrows. Some good stuff there. Blues theme and Apache 65. Yeah, kind of instrumental, almost like rockabilly-ish stuff from the 60s. So if you're just joining me, I am moving all of these about 10, 15 miles southeast of where I am right now. About 2,000 records. It's nuts. Let's see here. Otto Hayes, Avi Buffalo. This pretty much wraps up the A's. This last one's kind of interesting too. He's from Israel. His name is Asaf Avidan. I got into him after watching the TV series on Netflix called Dark. He has a song from this album, The Study of Falling, that is called Twisted Olive Branch, that's on that soundtrack, and just so good. He's got a very unique voice. So if you like that kind of, I don't know, Dark was such an interesting, fascinating show. I only lasted a couple seasons, so yeah. Next up is Beach House. If you want to see more about them, I did a ranking of all of their records video. You can check that. Maybe I'll go back and update the comments later and share some of that. So you'll be able to find a link later on that one. Next is Beach Fossils. They had a great album last year, which was Bunny. Good stuff. This is an interesting one too. The Other Side of Life piano ballads. They've taken an interesting journey from like this super angular stuff from their early days to kind of these were on captured tracks. And then Catch the Truth, I loved this album, a great one from 2013. And then they kind of went out on their own and started their own label. And their sound kind of morphed a bit then, and I've been really, really enjoying it. So that's Beach Fossils. Got the Beatles. So I once again, I do have more modern, or not more modern, Beatles modern, more mainstream type stuff and popular music as well. I've got a number of them. Personally, for the Beatles, like, it was the era of, like, I got some Rubber Soul, Revolver. It was the era of Revolver that I think I really liked the most. Got the White Album. My original pressing of Abbey Road, this was my dad's, so I've got that. It's not in the greatest condition, but it's one that I would never, ever get rid of and never replace. Thankfully, it doesn't have too many scratches. They're more like scuffs. And I just remember that was like one of the earliest albums I would listen to as a kid. In my pre-teen days, I would listen to that record in my parents' living room. Magical Mystery Tour and the Red Album. I did a deep dive on the Red Album a while back, and it didn't do very well here on YouTube. I think it's just too many people doing stuff on that. Belle and Sebastian, here it is. The album I was talking about, The Boy with the Arab Strap. This is actually one of 3 copies that I own. This is the Jeepster pressing, I also have a Matador pressing, and I have it on cassette. One of the few albums I have duplications of. I literally have everything by them. Belle and Sebastian's Dear Catastrophe Waitress. This is from 2003. I did a deep dive, one of my album history videos, one of my early ones too, where I shared like 8 or 10 fascinating things, maybe 5 interesting things about this band and this album. So you can seek that one out as well. And then literally everything else by them. One of my most played albums, The Life Pursuit, and on through their compilations and singles. Got a lot of singles from them as well. Kind of like the Smiths, they really enjoyed releasing 12-inch singles back in the day, back in their like early years. So like mid 90s, about 96, I think is when they released Tiger Milk, which is over at the other place, through probably about the release of that album that I just talked about. So you've got all of these guys here. Good stuff. I like it. Moving on to Big Thief, another band that I absolutely love. Just about done with the second box. I finally caught them live just last year, and it was just a phenomenal show. Even though Buck Meek, the guitarist, he had some technical issues, they still were phenomenal. Number 3, box 3. I'm only partway into the first one. So Big Thief, this also includes Adrian Lenker. And like I said, Buck Meek. I need to get his new one. I'm really curious to hear that album. I think it came out late last year, but this is Two Saviors. I think it's from 2000, 2001. One of my all-time favorite bands, Blonde Redhead, right here. I have all of their albums and a few of their other things as well. They've got like 3 O'Clock here, which I think is a nice little EP, and Freedom of Expression on Bargain. I believe that's how you pronounce that one, which is more of a kind of a remix album. I have some of them over at the new place already. My most listened to album, sneak peek. If you watch my 10 albums I listened to most, this was not on that high on that list, I don't believe. It now tops the list. And then, all the way dating back to Fate Can Be Just As Good. So I picked this one up in Canada as well as in an Expression. Both were 15 Canadian, which is much less US, especially back then. I think the exchange rate was like 75 cents on the dollar. So it was about, gosh, I don't know. I'm not mathing right now. 11 to 12 bucks after tax. Boat. These guys are nuts. Okay, fun story about Boat. I don't know if the album was on vinyl or not. Their one album they did not release on vinyl. So I used to go see these guys all the time in Seattle. I loved this album. This is right around the time 2006 when I started my music blog, FENSEPOST. Never seen a record for 15 bucks, maybe 22. Oh yeah, we're talking like, well, this was like 2018, 2019, something like that. This guy right here, so I would see these guys all the time, and I went to a show, and they, frontman Dave Crane, knew the guy. We were connected on Facebook, that kind of stuff, and we were chatting, and during the show, he called out, and he's like, this song goes to Fence's mustache. So like they dedicated a song to my mustache. Remember, this is like 2008. I've had this thing since 2007. My extensive David Bowie collection. Space Oddity, Hunky Dory. I've got a lot of his stuff. There's a few that I don't have, but yeah. Ziggy Stardust, so good. I did a deep dive video on this as well. I think I did it on Space Oddity, where I shared like 15 interesting things. If you have a chance to check that one out, there were some really fascinating things about that album, including kind of, I think I shared some of the namesake of how he took the name Ziggy Stardust, which I can't remember off the top of my head right now, but I kind of want to go revisit that. That was like one of my earliest like fun facts videos, kind of way before I started developing an audience here, so the quality is kind of crap. Pinups, Aladdin Sane, Diamond Dogs, Young Americans, Station to Station, Low, Heroes, so good. I think Heroes in like the Berlin era are some of my favorites. You got, of course, Scary Monsters. You got getting into the more recent modernish ones from the 80s and 90s, The Next Day. Good stuff there. If you're just joining me, I am packing up my records to move. And of course, Black Star. Phenomenal record. It's a little out there, but so good. I love that music video that he did for, was it, I can't remember what the name was, but it was just a really great one. And then you have like all of these other kind of oddities. Love You Till Tuesday. A fun, live bootleg. David Bowie, 1972, October 20, 1972, live at the Santa Monica Civic Auditorium. Very neat stuff. Just got some rare comps. Let's see if there's anything else interesting in here. Christiane, rare tracks, changes 2. Yeah, and then some 12-inch singles. Brian Jonestown Massacre, the band, I love their name. These guys made it to my my list of the weirdest band names in my collection. So there's some really odd ones out there, but kind of a cool like mashup of Brian Jones, the original lead singer of Rolling Stones, and the Jonestown Massacre. Their debut album right here, which is pretty great. This came out I think at like 95, 96 or something like that. If you haven't had a chance, watch the documentary Dig. Like Dig, D-I-G with an exclamation point. It's about Anton Newcomb and the Brian Jonestown Massacre and the original friendship that he had with the band The Dandy Warhols. And then it like turns into this like extreme, like contentious rivalry. And it just, great movie. You gotta watch it. Anton Newcomb, they paint him as a very, contentious character. How many records fit into each section? I have no clue. I would say 30 to 40 maybe. And I've got 25 sections here that I'm packing up in only 10 boxes. So anyways, I've got a whole bunch of Brian Jonestown Massacre. Yeah, speaking of, their Satanic Majesty's Second Request. Kind of a play off of a more Rolling Stones there, right? So, good stuff there. Brian Jonestown Massacre. And then Built to Spill, which has, they were one of the first albums I picked up new on vinyl. Like some of the other artists that I've been sharing, they have been releasing music since like the early to mid 90s. Their album, When the Wind Forgets Your Name, right here, was one of my top 3 albums of 2022, 2023. I can't even, no, 2022. But this one right here, Keep It Like a Secret, was my first ever album that I purchased new. So there's great stuff here. This is my most recent pickup, which is they got away and rearranged. It's weird. They almost have like this reggae thing going on parts of this record. Pretty fascinating. Someone just mentioned, I didn't catch the name, that you've moved quite a few times and the records get very heavy. Yeah. I have a little dinky pickup from 2018. It's about the smallest one I could pick up on the market at the time. It's like the utility. It's like the basest of the base model, which is not very Texas, by the way. Everyone here has giant ass trucks. Yeah, it's gonna take a few moves simply because I don't have a ton of boxes. But I did bring some extra crates and stuff like that, and I've got a whole thing of 7 inches upstairs as well. So I'm guessing in terms of this, I probably have about 2,000 records, maybe about a little under that, maybe 1,800. On to box 4. Which I'm gonna move up a little closer here. Onto the B's now. So my collection organization style is alphabetical, obviously. And then if I have 5 or more albums of a specific artist, then I will like pull those out into their own section. And I will do, within that, I will do chronologically based on release year. Yeah, I don't trust movers with everything either. Plus, I just want to get these out and get them over to the new place. The movers I scheduled for tomorrow morning, and so I've got to get it out today, and I've got a number of things I got to get done on this place so I can get it listed on the market, because I want to get this off the books and be able to pay down the new place. Yeah. I just got my real estate license as well, so I'm going to be the listing agent on my townhouse here that I'm selling, which is a little wild to think. That was B movie. Just gonna shuffle through some of the B's here. Julian Baker's Sprained Ankle, a phenomenal record. Julian Baker, of course, is 1/3 of Boy Genius, with Julie Dacus and Phoebe Bridgers. The vinyl on this, I mean, look at that. It's just so cool. One of the coolest pieces of wax, colored wax I own. Continuing on the B's, Band of Horses. I talk about the 10 albums that changed my life in a video I'm gonna post now on Thursday. I was gonna do it today, but I because of this live stream, I'm gonna push it to Thursday. I talk about the band that led to the creation of this. So the band that Ben Bridwell was in before he formed Band of Horses. I also knew the original drummer on this. He and I we worked at the same radio station in Pullman, Washington, way back in the day. Bardo Pond, this is from Record Store Day last year, one of the Record Store Days. Courtney Barnett, some good stuff there. Her double EP, which I think turns 10 this year. Yeah. And MTV Unplugged. The Baroques. So, like I said, this is just indie stuff. I did a big deep dive into psychedelic and garage rock, especially the more obscure stuff. A lot of the mainstream stuff just didn't really resonate with me, and so I don't really talk about it much if I do have it in my collection. But a band like the Baroques, I need to dig into this again and all of that. Didn't have a chance to read that whole comment before it disappeared, but alphabetical. I mean, if you have a lot of records, alphabetical seems to be the way to go. This is another interesting one, Robbie Basho. So this is more world folk. He was a guy in like the 60s, 70s, like late 60s through the early to mid 80s when he passed away. 12-string guitar, very worldly. The Grail and the Lotus is one of them. The Falconer's Arm. He was on Tacoma Records with a K, T-A-K-O-M-A, if you're familiar with the city of Tacoma, Washington, that has a C, or the Toyota Tacoma. Yes, I do that behind the sleeve. That's how I store them. Nude cover. Venus in Cancer, great record. I was really thrilled to find that. And this is the one that got me into it. Visions of the Country. Blue, the song Blue Crystal Fire or something like that, I think, is the song that really hooked me on Robbie Basho. This is a reissue on Gnome Life Records. They've got some interesting stuff on that label. And then another reissue of Songs of the Great Mystery that I actually talked about here on my channel before, but it was way back in the day before I had literally any audience, probably like 1, maybe 200 followers. New Zealand, one of my favorite bands from New Zealand, The Bats. So good. It's kind of like indie pop, jangle pop, stuff like that. They've been around since the early 1980s. And they're still creating music, to my knowledge. This is one of their more recent ones, Foothills. I think it came out in like 2022. Oh, I love that. Yeah, exactly. What's nice is I get to revisit albums I may not have looked at in a while, which is definitely the case here. Got some Beach Boys, from my dad's collection, which of course includes an original pressing of Pet Sounds, which I've talked about. This one did not make my albums that changed my life, even though I talk about it changing my life in my video of that album. And of course, Christmas. This is like the one Christmas album that I actually will not ever leave my collection. Now, if you're a fan of shoegaze, you got to check out this band, Beachy Head. It is the debut full length from members of Slowdive, Flaming Lips, Eternal, Casket Girls, and Soft Calvary. Really, really good stuff. I think it's just an EP. It plays at 45 RPM. Really good. I love it. Bear in Heaven, kind of like this electronic-ish stuff. And then Beat Happening. Now, that's Calvin Johnson of K Records. His project from like the 90s. I've got a number from him. K Records, of course, is in the greater Seattle area, so Olympia, Washington. Got Dreamers, music to climb the apple tree by, and then I go into like some other stuff, Beatnik Film Stars, and the debut Beirut album, Gulag Orchestra, so good. I love that record. I did have a chance to see him live way back in the day. I think he'd only released 1 or 2 albums at the time. Also shoegaze, if you are a fan of the Resurgence-ish era, especially the early, like mid-2000s or so. This is Besnard Lakes, and Besnard Lakes are the dark horse. They almost channel a little bit of the harmonies of the Beach Boys, I think, but they have like this really cool sound on this record. I don't know, like I think this is just really an underappreciated album as time has gone on. Best Coast, Birdmen of Alcatraz. Yeah, Birdmen of Alcatraz. And the Black Heart Procession. Really good, like, theatrical, dark music right there. I've got them with Solbakken, In the Fish Tank, kind of a cool series where they pair 2 albums or 2 bands together to create some original music and sometimes covers. Black Heart Procession again and again. And now some more like the neo soul, like bluesy stuff. Black Keys, song, that name of this album is Brothers. And Tighten Up, which was on that album, as well as the B-side. Howlin' For You, also on that album. Black Lips, kind of this sludgy garage rock band. Good stuff. Can be a little hard-hitting at times. Good, Bad, Not Evil. Love this album. This is the one that got me into it, and honestly, a lot of people. This is their 15th anniversary edition. Includes an extra LP of B-sides and rarities, including a few tracks and whatnot. It's on white vinyl as well. I'm really glad I picked that one up. I think it's my favorite by them. But it's one of those I can't listen to like a lot. Black Lips again. Let's see. Black Mountain. Oh, another Black Lips. And Black Pumas. Nice diverse array of artists there with similar names. Cube number 5. Oh my gosh, I'm almost like a fifth of the way done with this. Blair 1523. Carl Blau. Now, Nate in Austin talked about Carl Blau in a recent video, and here it is. He mentioned Nature's Got Away, and also this one, introducing Carl Blau. This is a very fascinating album, kind of packed with covers, like country-ish rendition, just so good. I think it's got a couple covers, maybe a couple originals. Carl Blau, oh, here's another one I picked up when I was visiting my parents in Spokane recently, called Max by Carl Blau. Carl Blau is an artist from, originally from the Anacortes area, and Blau is a pretty well-known name there. They've got, I believe, don't quote me on this, but I think they've got a few like oyster farms or something like that in the Anacortes, like northwest corner of Washington. And I lived right by there for about 12 years, and so I'd see him, and I'd see Phil from Mount Elverum, from Mount Erie a number of times, kind of around town and stuff like that. But Anacortes was kind of like the sister city of Olympia. So Olympia being K Records and having, on Sleater Kinney, Kill Rock Stars, that label, having this huge like DIY indie scene. And Anacortes was kind of like their sister hub, kind of up on the other side of Seattle, still on the ocean. Anacortes is also the gateway out into the Puget Sound, and so that's where they had the ferry, and you would take the ferry out to Lopez, out to Friday Harbor, out to Orcas Island. I would go to camp out there as a kid, a YMCA camp. My parents would send my brother and I away for 2 weeks, and we'd go to this YMCA camp called Camp Orkyla. A lot of fun. I always loved that place. Blitzen Trapper, Blondie. I do have some, like I said, I do have some mainstream. They're kind of slipping in here. Some good stuff by them. And one that you might not expect from my list, Blood Brothers with Crimes. Now here's another interesting one. Okay, I know someone commented like, I've never seen a record for $15. This was 19. And this is on colored vinyl, a 2013 reissue on yellow wax. This is the album that got me into some of that more screamy stuff. Not worth the $18.99. It's worth much more. Plus, I bought this in Canada, so I only paid like $14 US. More Blood Brothers. Blues Magoos. So jumping back into the the 60s, and I believe something from this was on the early Nuggets album. And if it didn't make that original one, I think it was on one of the subsequent comps. Nuggets comps. Nuggets, of course, was a compilation series of kind of like hits and rarities from the 60s garage and era, something like that. I can't remember exactly. I kind of discovered that, and then I would do like a deep dive into some of the artists that were on that original one, which I've got way down there at the very end in the compilations. But yeah. I don't know if I really like it as much as the Pebbles, because like Nuggets is like bigger. You got Pebbles, which is like really unknown artists. Bodies of Water. These guys are really interesting. They got some good, almost like, I think it's two couples or something like that, or maybe it's just two men, two women. But they've got some really great harmonies, kind of quirky stuff, but a little bit of rock, definitely indie rock. The Bolshoi. On to box 4. Bon Iver. I never remember how to pronounce that name. Bonnie Prince Billy. Now, this one, Ask Forgiveness, is probably my favorite by him, which I think a lot of people will not like if you're a big fan of that. Yeah, 8-song EP. I think most of these are covers. I think he even covers like a Kanye West song or something like that called I Am the Greatest, which is just like so Kanye. Never really listened to Kanye West. I don't really want to. Brave and the Bold. This is Tortoise and Bonnie Prince Billy. Some really cool stuff on that. I think there's a cover of a Neil Young song in here or something like that too. This one came out last year as a first reissue ever from the band on this album. Bowery Electric and their self-titled one. I think this made my best reissues of 2023 list. Getting into some good old Charles Bradley, Changes and No Time for Dreaming. Kind of nice soul stuff there. His story is a fascinating one. And he just has such good music. If you like Charles Bradley, also check out Lee Fields. And there's plenty of others. I've got some Leon Bridges in here as well and stuff like that. Bright Eyes, you like sad, mopey music that's not extremely like emo, but still is definitely emo. Broadcast, the noise made by people. Very melodic, I don't know how to describe it, but it's really phenomenal music. I've got a few over at my other place, the Ha Ha Sound, and Work and Non-Work. They just released a compilation of BBC recordings in the last 2 years. And of course, the band hasn't really been around in well over, I believe it's well over a decade, about a decade and a half to 2 decades now, after the frontwoman passed away in like the mid to late 2000s. I think it was like late 2000s. They were on tour in Australia and she came down with pneumonia and she passed away. So passing away from pneumonia was still a thing back in those days. COVID didn't start that. The Broken Jug. I went on this like huge garage rock resurgence back in like about a decade ago. And I found all of these like 80s and early 90s garage rock bands that are just super, super awkward, but created some really interesting music. So this is the Broken Jug from that. I'm sure I'll find others here in the collection. Broken Social Scene, Feel Good Lost, but my favorite is You Forgot It in People. Love this album. Try to speed it up a little bit, except I just stumbled across an original pressing of The Bubble Puppy and Gathering of Promises, A Gathering of Promises. I think 1969. Such a phenomenal record, so underappreciated. Some of the mainstream stuff from like the late 60s, early 70s does not touch some of the underground music, and Bubble Puppy is part of that. I actually was introduced to the Bubble Puppy from a guy named, I believe his name is Richie Jackson. He's a skateboarder, and he does these like really just absolutely ridiculous tricks. He's got this massive mustache